Hello everybody, I'm Scott Nissen with Colorado State University. I'm here on a very auspicious occasion. We have the opportunity to talk about some research that we started years ago with a product called indaziflam. I want to give a little bit of history. Bayer Crop Science introduced a product called Allion back in 2010. And I noticed on that label there was a species that was very important to us here in Colorado, and that's cheatgrass, or downy brome. So I mentioned to George Beck, who was at CSU at the time, and his research associate Jim Sebastian, that there was this new product. It was soil applied, soil active, and had apparently very good activity on cheatgrass. So I made the suggestion to Jim that he might want to think about including that in some of the research that they were doing for cheatgrass control. And here we are, almost 10 years later, and we're introducing a new product that includes the active ingredient indaziflam. Bayer funded several grad students here on my left and my right to work on this project, and they're going to talk a little bit about it. But I just wanted to follow up with my little historical perspective. We saw such great results with indaziflam or Rejuvra that when we presented this research at certain conferences, a lot of our colleagues in other states like Utah and Wyoming, Idaho, were just not very convinced that we had actually found something that was providing multiple years of cheatgrass control with a single application. So they were very skeptical. But now, after being involved in this program and putting out research in their own locations, we now know that not only does Rejuvra provide control of cheatgrass, but also ventonata, medusa head, feral rye, jointed goatgrass, and a range of other broadleaf weeds that mainly are reproducing by seed. So things like Scotch thistle and musk thistle and a number of other weed species. The announcement was just made yesterday that we have a grazing label now. That was the big problem. We were promoting this for use, but we always had to end every presentation with the statement, Rejuvra does not have a grazing tolerance. But now we have that tolerance. We're going to be able to use it not only in open space, but now space any land area that's grazed by domestic livestock. So I'm going to turn over the reins to Dr. Derek Sebastian, and he's going to talk a little bit about some parts of this Rejuvra label.
Yeah, thanks Scott. Awesome background on this whole project. It's been a huge collaborative effort. You know, we've had a lot of counties, agencies, universities involved throughout the West. So I did my PhD at CSU with Scott, and then now I'm with Bayer Vegetation Management, Range and Pasture. So I've been with that group for about 3 years now, and what's cool is I was able to do that, this whole indaziflam for my whole PhD, and now moving into, with Bayer, now we can see this, full circle. So now it's, we got the grazing label now. Land managers can use this on an operational scale like they couldn't before, because a lot of lands are grazed that are invaded by invasive grasses. So the opportunity is just fantastic. There's really been a need for a tool that gives you multi-year control, and that was one of the, I guess, most exciting things about the projects that we were involved with was the seed bank. There's so many times where, the imazapic, plateau, rimsulfuron, matrix have, they're applied, but they're very water soluble. So you could go from an area that looks like you had almost 100% control the first year to almost 0% control the second year, because the sites become reinvaded via the seed bank. And we found that the seed bank lasts about 3 to 5 years for these invasive grasses. So what's cool with indaziflam and now Rejuvra is it gives us 3+ years control with one treatment. So like you're seeing on this area on the left-hand side is basically 3 years after treatment, we've done a large part of that seed bank depletion. So not having to go back multiple times, you can see how once you're able to eliminate the invasive grass, just how productive these sites can be. So just a new opportunity for Rejuvra on grazed rangelands, and just a really exciting collaborative project. And I'm going to hand it off to Shannon. She's going to talk about production and kind of what this means for ranchers moving forward here in the western U.S.
Dr. Shannon.
Thanks.
Dr. Shannon Clark.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, so I also did my PhD at CSU under Dr. Scott Nissen, working with Rejuvra. So it's really exciting. I just joined the Bayer Western Stewardship and Development team and working on some of the development of this product. So I wanted to talk about the benefits we have now in using a product like this in rangeland when you get seed bank depletion, but what else comes from that, especially from a grazing point of view with domestic livestock. So for ranchers that can take use this as a benefit now. So when you look at a site like this over here, where you haven't sprayed and you have cheatgrass, really suppressing the native grass in here, which is western wheatgrass, which is a great forage grass for livestock. But if cows were in here, they would really have to come through and it's like grazing with tweezers, is what we've heard a rancher kind of explain it to us before. So it's really hard for cattle to make use of the good grass that's actually in here. So they'll really avoid these areas at all costs and heavily graze areas that are not infested by cheatgrass. But when you're able to take a product like Rejuvra and get the type of response over here where you've eliminated the cheatgrass, you can see not only do cows, they don't have to be selective when grazing, but you've also increased your biomass production. And we've seen anywhere from 2 to 10-fold increase in perennial grass biomass response, which is amazing. And I also want to point out over here, you can see, this is just what the cheatgrass is doing to the grasses. These grasses are actually seeding out over here on this side, a lot of them. When you look at the other side, you actually had no grass seed heads even forming yet. So the cheatgrass is suppressing this growth on the grass so much it's not even seeding out yet. And so just a really cool benefit of this product in the amount of forage availability that you gain from an application. And so we're looking at returns on investment, and in ranching, you invest in things like equipment, cattle, fencing, and sometimes your return on investment can be 10 or 15 years. With a product like Rejuvra, we're looking at about a 3-year return on investment for treating your cheatgrass with the biomass and perennial grass response that you get. So we just wanted to show what the cheatgrass is actually doing to your grass is more than just reducing the amount. You're reducing the quality and the usable land that you have. So Rejuvra gives you the opportunity to take back that land, which is so expensive to buy and worth so much.
Yeah, and what, in terms of invasive grasses, I don't know, Scott, maybe you can mention just over your career what you've seen in terms of the devastation of invasive grasses and kind of the focus, over the past few years. It's something that's not slowing down, in terms of infestation.
Right, it's increased year after year, and I think right now current figures estimate over 55 million acres infested with downy brome, but there's also Ventonata and Medusa head, which are expanding in their range. We don't have either one of those here in Colorado yet, but Ventonata exists in Wyoming, and Wyoming found out a few years ago, rather than having just maybe a small infestation of 1,000 acres, they have upwards of 200,000 to 300,000 acres of Ventonata in Sheridan County, Wyoming. So you can imagine it's not too hard for things to move from Wyoming into Colorado. So I think what I would like to reiterate is the point that Shannon was making, and that is that you can't buy more land, but you can take the land you have and increase its productivity from something like this to what we have over here, and it's as if you were able to buy more land. So a 3-year return on investment is pretty good, and anybody who keeps track of their money would probably take that bet. If you can get a 3-year return on investment, that would be a bet most people would take. But I'll say one last thing before we stop. This really has been a great collaboration between the university and industry. It shows really how people at the university level, and with support from some of our county weed managers, can take a concept like this, present it to industry, and have industry be willing to invest millions and millions of dollars once they see the potential of their product in a new environment. And so I think that's been the most exciting part of this whole adventure.